Welcome to the Heal Your Hunger Show, where we get to the heart of why you overeat and how to stop. If you struggle with food and weight like I did, welcome home.
Welcome everybody to the Heal Your Hunger Show. So happy to have you here. It is a great day to be alive, and I have an amazing guest for you today. Before I bring her on, I want to tell you, if you're here at the Heal Your Hunger Show for the first time, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. This is a great place to come when you just want to throw away all the stress of the diet roller coaster ride, all the stress of trying to manage your weight, trying to be, quote, good. You don't have to do that. It's not a good or bad issue. If you struggle with food and weight, it's likely an emotional eating issue. And this is where you come to really address the underlying causes of emotional eating, because we talk about that here. We talk about so many things that affect the lives of emotional eaters. If you're not sure if you're an emotional eater, you can hop over to the website healyourhunger.com and take a quiz. It's a free quiz, and it'll tell you exactly where you stand on the emotional eating spectrum. You're either an emotional eater or a food addict, or somewhere in between. You'll get a personalized score. It takes about 3 minutes to take the quiz. And then you'll know, and you'll be given next steps to take on account of based on your personal score. Also, I am recording this in the Secret Sauce group. And so if you're not in the group, join us there. That's when you get hot off the press live interviews for my podcast. They happen there in the group first. That means you can comment. We can just keep talking about the topic that my guests bring and that I bring up for different episodes of the Heal Your Hunger Show. So go to Facebook, type in the secret sauce to end emotional eating now. We will let you in, and then you'll get support. You'll be with your kind people who struggle with food and weight, who are totally sick and tired of the diet roller coaster ride. They want to go deeper. They want to have a more meaningful conversation about what this connection with food is and how to heal it, the unhealthy connection, and how to build a good, healthy relationship with food. So join us in the Secret Sauce group on Facebook. Also, you can find me on Instagram. I post almost every day, and my handle is Tricia Nelson _. So Tricia Nelson _, and you'll be inspired. You'll be moved. You'll be seeing things that can help support you throughout the day on your journey to heal your relationship with food and to heal your hunger. So on with the show. Let's get to it. Let's talk about really important issues that affect how we eat, affect how our families eat, and just our overall relationship with food. So Katie Kimball is the national voice of healthy kids cooking. She's a blogger, a former teacher, and a mom of 4 kids who founded the Kids Cook Real Food e-course. Okay, and it was recommended by the Wall Street Journal as the best online cooking class for kids. And she has a blog called Kitchen Stewardship, which helps people and families stay healthy without going crazy. And she's on a mission to connect families around healthy food and teach every child in America to cook. Katie, welcome. So happy to have you here.
I'm so happy to speak to your audience, Tricia, because I know that they care, and that just gets me all jazzed up.
Yeah. And I love this because, I mostly talk to moms and people who are adults, and, they certainly oftentimes missed the cooking classes because nobody was doing it in their home. They were maybe a fast food home or just really stressed out, working moms and dads. And so I love that you do this, but of course I love that the focus is on kids, because kids do need the education, and the more educated they are, the more involved they are, I'm sure the healthier their choices are going to be when they get really excited about the process of cooking and resourcing, the ingredients and what they're eating and making. So thank you for this really important work. Congratulations for your success. And tell me, and the audience, how you got involved with this in the first place.
Yeah, I always wanted to be a teacher since I was a tiny person. I knew my trajectory. That's what I went to school for. That's what I became. But I also knew that as a perfectionist, I couldn't be a full-time teacher and a mom. And so I only taught for 2 years before I became a mom. And then I quit, went home. And in that process, we were still pretty young, my husband and I. We went in the red. Our budget did not do so well with me quitting. And I had to figure out a way to make some money. And I'd sort of had my own real food revelation, getting pregnant and going through the classes and just realizing, oh my goodness, like every bite counts so much for this tiny body. Like maybe hamburger helper, bagged salad, and salad, bottled salad dressing is not the best to grow a new person.
Right.
So that was sort of the beginning of my transformation. I was spending a lot of time at the cutting board, making the homemade baby food, making a mistake after mistake, burning things. And I thought, boy, I think I could make this easier for other moms who are like feeling the tension. Like either I spend all my money or I spend all my time or something's unhealthy. Like it's hard to hit the middle. And that's where this idea for me of kitchen stewardship came about. Like, how can we steward all the gifts we have, from our time to our money, to our environment, to our family's health and nutrition? And my heart of a teacher was burning. And that's where it sort of grew this blog. And it became a family business. Actually, 6 years ago, my husband was able to leave his job and come home to start his own business serving my community. And that was at the same time that I knew I needed to do something new as well. Because the women in my community kept saying, Katie, I really want to get healthy, but I was never taught to cook. This is so hard. And I thought, goodness, I don't think these women are teaching their kids to cook, right? Because we're uncomfortable in the kitchen as a generation in general. And I just could see that the cycle would continue unless someone stepped in and made it easier for us to build these good habits in our kids. And so, I know your audience is so familiar with this idea of like the habits around how we eat are probably more important than what we eat. And so that's a huge piece of what we do, is how do we build healthy habits in the beginning so our kids don't have to spend their young adulthood and 20s and 30s breaking these bad habits.
I love that. So true. Learn it right from the beginning. Yeah. I love that. So what's the entrance kind of invitation to a kid? Like, how are you suggesting that we position that? It's like, hey, make your own meal. Isn't that cool? Or is it, hey, did you know where these ingredients actually come from? It didn't just show up as a pizza. Like, how do you initially get kids engaged?
Totally fair question. And it's a really different answer whether you're talking about your 3, 4, and 5-year-old and your tweens and teens, right?
Right.
So lucky you moms who still have 3, 4, 5, and 6-year-olds, because they are already motivated. We know that. They're saying, Mama, can I vacuum? Daddy, can I do the dishes?
They want to be a little adult.
They do. And what do we say? Oh, no, I got this. Go play. Right? I can do it faster. You're kind of messy. And we kick them out of the kitchen. And that literally trains their neural pathways. The kitchen is not a place for me. Okay. So all you have to do if you're mom of a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old is just say yes more times than you say no, right? They already want to come in. And the amazing thing, like scientifically researched, is that when kids use that internal motivation and get into the kitchen or whatever life skill, pick one that you can teach before they're about age 6, you don't break that intrinsic motivation, and they're still more motivated to help when they're 8, 9, 10, and older.
Okay,
so
cool.
That is the way to get help around the house, is make sure you're saying yes from a young age. Now, if you're a mom already who has, age 10 and up, they might not be that motivated. And I find that serving others actually ends up creating that feeling of confidence. Right? So if you can have your kids, and I know we're sitting here in the midst of a pandemic right now, we might not be having a lot of dinner parties, but even if you can just convince them to help on one thing, like maybe the next time the grandparents are coming over or something that you might take to someone else, it creates a really authentic, genuine way for people to compliment them. And when kids see that they've made something that nourishes someone else, that is meaningful, right? We all want to feel like we matter in the world. And to sustain another life, how can you get more worth than that? So when kids just have that little taste of what it feels like to serve someone else food that they've made, they're more likely to be motivated to come back. And actually my two older kids, they're asked a lot like, well, why do you like learning to cook? You know, because they're stuck being my children and this is what we do in our house. And more often than not, they say, you know, when we cook, we get to choose what we make. And so we always like the food. And
Oh,
that's a
I
huge
love that.
motivator.
Yeah, I love that. And I didn't think about that, about the positive reinforcement that kids get from serving food and also, like you said, taking part and realizing the kitchen is somewhere they belong. I love that. Those, you know, that those observations. I think that's really cool. I didn't think of that. What it did make me think of though is my mom used to have a lot of dinner parties. She was a great cook and a great entertainer. Both my parents were. And so I was always the one serving. I didn't cook the food, which might have been good if I had, but I definitely served a lot of food, and I did get a lot of positive reinforcement. I mean, I was, you know, I was like the little cute one just passing around food, you know, so that was kind of fun. I did enjoy that. So great stuff. So, do you recommend certain recipes to start out with?
So I emphatically take a skills over recipes approach.
Okay.
Okay. We tend to, in fact, like widely searched term is kid-friendly recipes or snacks kids will eat. I don't think it's about the recipes. Learning to cook is about the skills.
Okay.
And this really, it really breaks it down into pieces so that it doesn't feel as overwhelming for parents, right? You don't have to find the best recipe. You don't have to do the whole recipe start to finish with your child. If you can teach your 3-year-old how to measure a teaspoon of salt, and they measure that teaspoon of salt completely by themselves, and it goes into your soup. Why does the soup taste good? Your 3-year-old did that. You know how much confidence that builds when you can compliment your 3-year-old, right? I mean, not quite as simple with the 12-year-old. They'll see through the salt trick, but if you can just break it down into measuring, stirring, reading a recipe, peeling, cutting, like, so for me, there is no such thing as a kid-friendly recipe, right? There's just a kid who has enough skills to make whatever they want.
Okay, I like that. And again, you're totally jogging my memory here. Like I started cooking really young. Now I think about it. Scrambled eggs was my first masterpiece.
Nice. I love it.
And then it was scrambled eggs and ham. But I do remember it being something I was proud of. And my older sister, she was kind of a bookworm and she had very little interest in cooking. And basically it wasn't her, you know, I cooked for her a lot of the time, but it was one of those things that I really was proud of as I grew up. It was something I knew I could do. Not that I was a great cook, but growing up, it was something in my toolbox. Like, hey, this is something I'm good at. And again, I love that you're really emphasizing the positive reinforcement and how important that is as a, you know, building block for self-esteem for kids.
Yeah. And you really just brought up a good point too, is ownership. Ham and eggs was yours.
Yeah, that's
right? You crushed it at ham and eggs. Who cares if it's one dish, right?
Yeah.
No big deal. If a kid feels ownership about a little piece of the kitchen or a little piece of the meal, I mean, that's really, really powerful because we live in a world where a lot is uncertain and kids don't feel like they have a lot of choice. They don't feel like they have a lot of control. And that's pandemic aside, right?
Right.
Kids are sort of washed along in the wave of our schedules. And when they can have some choice, some control, some agency, these are incredibly powerful when it comes to sense of self and confidence.
Yeah, what's really sweet, and everybody else doesn't know this, but when just before we got started, Katie said, "Oops, I need to close my door. My kids are grinding grains." I'm like, "Whoa, like they're really doing this thing."
They are. It's going to start smelling good in here before I'm done with this interview. We're having margarita pizza tonight.
Oh my God, that's so cool. So are they making whole meals themselves? Do you divvy up their nights that they're taking part? How does that work?
So right now my kids are 15, 12, 9, and 6. We can count by threes. So no more birthdays because then I won't be able to count. And the 15 and 12-year-old, Paul and Leah, have been making dinner once a week for 3 years. Right. Wow. So do the math. They were 9 and 12 when they started taking over. And it's really a gradual release of responsibility. So at first they took over because I wanted to volunteer at church Sunday nights. My husband was like, no, not at dinner time. You're going to be a stressed out, not nice person. So I said, well, what if Paul and Leah could make dinner every week? So we chose our favorite homemade pizza recipe, not this one that they're making. And I showed it to them once. Same day we turned around and then they mimicked, right? They did it while I watched. Then they made it once or twice while I was still in the house. And then they made pizza every Sunday for a year while I was completely gone, right? So they like nailed that recipe. They down to a science. And then the following year we said, okay, now every other week, why don't you plan something different, right? Old friendly fallback and then something new. Old friendly fallback, something new. So it was really gradual. And then the third year, now they just plan dinner once a week completely on their own. They've learned a lot more this year about planning ahead, things like thawing meat. You know, my husband and I sometimes will look at each other about 3:00 on a Thursday and go, do you think we should tell them it's their dinner night? When are they going to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we say, no, we can't do it. We can't tell them because they've got to learn from failure sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and they're actually, you can see the shift throughout the year getting much better. So that's the older two kids. My third child's 9. So he's old enough to start helping. The big kids don't really want him on their team. They say he complains too much. So we just this weekend said, okay, like new Kimball family routine, you're going to sous chef for somebody once a week, whether that's me or my husband on taco night, or maybe one of the big kids. And so once a week, he's got to do like part of the meal. So that's kind of how we gradually shift responsibilities to the kids.
I love that. Oh my God, it is so great. I hope people listening are just starting to have the light bulbs go off, because it's just all the way around. It just sounds like a win-win for everybody.
It really is. But remember, don't compare my end to your beginning, right? Like, I don't want people out there to go, oh man, like I could never see that happening in my house. My kids won't make a whole meal. That's okay. Start with a teaspoon of salt, right? Yeah. Start with just little skills that build and build, because they've been cooking for 6 years now.
Yes. Wow. I love that. So good advice, because we tend to beat ourselves up if we don't do it perfectly the first time around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's great. So is it just sort of like the recipe informs what skills you teach, or do you have kind of a hierarchy of skills that you want to introduce to your kids?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time with a lot of index cards, making a really big mess on the floor, trying to figure out what skills were like developmentally correct for different ages and how to logically build them in our class. So I do very much think that we need to logically build skills. And I'll just give you 3 quick stair-step examples. So our beginner level is our preschoolers, ages like 2 to 5 or 6. And in preschool, teachers are focusing on small motor skills, right? Holding a pencil, cutting with scissors. And so we do the same. That's where we do our initial measuring, practice, stirring, and things like pouring that uses that same pincher grasp. And it's a very doable skill for a 2 or 3-year-old. And again, we're empowering that 2 and 3-year-old to pour their own milk on cereal or oatmeal, and they feel so involved. So it's the kind of the small motor, very base foundational skills for our little kids. And then as soon as kids can read, the game changes. All right. I know a lot of parents, and myself included, when my kids were littler, we forget how much they're growing intellectually at school. And we're still having them sort of dump ingredients and help us stir, right?
Right.
But as soon as they can read, now the 3 main skills are reading and following a recipe well, because it's like a different language in a way.
Yeah.
Working with sharp knives and working at the stove.
Okay. There's little danger to some of these things.
It does throw in a little danger. And you know what? Lenore Skenazy of Free Range Kids has a great way of describing that. She says little bits of danger, like climbing a tree or using a sharp knife in childhood, are like inoculations to proper risk taking. Okay. So we teach our kids to take the little risks, kind of so that they're not hitting teenagerdom or young adulthood and going, wow, and like taking the crazy big risks that make no sense, because they know how to take little risks and trust themselves. How cool is that?
Yeah, I love that. That makes so much sense. It's really overlooked, isn't it? The idea that we can really equip our kids with so many life skills starting at home in the kitchen, before they even set their foot out the door. So I love this stuff. And so Talk to me a little bit about, your course, how you help parents help their kids.
Sure. Well, I've given you a little perspective, sort of that beginner, intermediates are readers. I didn't hit the advanced, but our kids
Oh,
like
okay.
9, 10,
I'd love to
11,
hear
and
about it.
12 and beyond. That's okay.
Okay.
Now we're going to get the chef's knife out. They're strong enough to get into the oven, and they have the executive function capability of balancing maybe 2 recipes at once.
Okay.
That's when they can potentially start to make a full meal, as long as they've got, all the other skills. We teach about 30 foundational skills.
Okay.
Yeah, we do that through videos. Whoa, we do that through videos that are professionally filmed and edited. So the kids aren't watching us make something in real time. That actually gets really boring. Where they're just seeing the skill, a couple skills, how they go together. And then we send people off into the kitchen, ideally with their families, for quality time. Right. So the parents really say, gosh, I didn't think being in the kitchen could ever be fun. Like, it's always been stressful. And this is the first time I've actually enjoyed having my kids in the kitchen, because they don't have to think. That's my job. Right.
Right. Yeah.
And also the responsibility that kids build is an incredible gift to the family. And usually after 1, 2, or 3 classes maximum, parents are already getting time back. They're saying, oh my gosh, this just got productive. Like, my kids actually saved me time. Like, how is this even possible? But it's true. Like, depending on the age of the kids, 1, 2, or 3 classes is what we find kids start giving back to the family.
Oh, it's so beautiful. I love this. This is really, really sweet. And do they get an education at all about health, like whole grains from the earth, closer to the earth products, or ingredients versus processed and that kind of thing? Like, are they educated about that, so they know that the more they are cooking and sourcing things from the earth, the better off they're going to be?
Definitely. Our name kind of gives it away, right? Kids cook real food.
Right.
So in each of our classes, we have a little daily nugget, which is like a 60-second, commercial, so to speak, with one little fact about how food makes you healthy, how to look for healthy food. We talk about unrefined salt, happy cows make healthy meat. I can't even think of all of them, but yes, absolutely.
Nice.
And, even more than that is the power of being involved with the food.
Yes.
Right? Like, especially when we think about emotional eating, like, what's more emotional than, say, a picky or selective eater sitting at a table, feeling this pressure, like, oh my gosh, I have to eat everything, right? Somebody's going to make me clear my plate, or somebody's going to make me take a bite of something that completely is disgusting to me. That's really stressful.
Yeah.
Working in the kitchen doesn't have that pressure to eat. Right? So there's not stress. The kids are, again, I'm going to use that word, inoculation, in a positive way as possible. But in a way, your sense of smell and sound and touch are being inoculated to make friends with those foods without the pressure to eat. And it's very impactful on picky eating. It's very impactful on the way kids feel about their food. And I teach a lot to parents, again, outside. Our classes are for kids, but I do a lot of teaching otherwise, because I really want to be the hub of children's health. And I tell parents kind of how to structure snacks versus meals to make sure kids are hungry when they're coming to the table, some phrases they can pull out of their parenting toolbox at the table that aren't confrontational, that aren't going to cause power struggles, but instead diffuse them. So I'm very, very passionate about the kids forming healthy habits now, having good relationships with their food and with the way they feel about eating.
That's so amazing. Oh my gosh, I love this. This is such a great topic. And I know so many people are listening right now thinking, wow, I need this. I need to be able to have the whole food conversation, have a different beginning, middle, and end, and where it's not on, give it to me or satisfy this craving, but really, be proactive and take responsibility and be a part of, and really be a creator of amazing meals and involved in the process. I just love it. Such good stuff. Wow. Katie, I love it so much. Can you share where people can get a hold of you and access, information about what you offer?
Absolutely. So I kind of have this problem where I love getting knives in the hands of children. Not to be taken, not to be taken the wrong way. But our members' favorite class is our 10-minute knife skills and safety video. We teach the
Beautiful.
same techniques to 2-year-olds with their butter knives as we do to 12-year-olds with their chef's knives. So all the moms and grandmas out there can benefit from this. And we've got a special sneak preview for your audience at kidscookrealfood.com/healyourhunger.
Oh, nice. Thank
Class for
you.
free. Yeah, definitely. And then if you want to see like my kids actually cooking, that would be at Kids Cook Real Food on Instagram. Poor kids. They're
Okay.
like, again, Instagram. Yes, guys, this is my job.
Kids Cook Real Food. And we'll put that link also to that freebie in the show notes.
Awesome.
So beautiful stuff. Thank you so much, Katie. It's really exciting. And Katie also has a podcast. And what's your podcast?
Sure. It's actually a video interview show called The Healthy Parenting Connector. Someday will be a podcast when I get that far down on my list.
Yeah. You're a little busy. I get it. 4 kids and all. So that's great. Well, I'm excited to be interviewed by you for your audience as well. So thank you everybody for tuning in. Please take advantage of that beautiful gift that Katie is offering. And this is a great way to just up level the health of your family right off the bat, starting in the kitchen. So love it so much. And Katie, I have a final parting question for you that I ask all my guests. This being the Heal Your Hunger show, what is your deepest hunger?
Ooh. Right now, especially with the pandemic swirling around us, connection is the word that comes to mind immediately. I personally want to feel connected to my family at the end of the day. I feel like I had a moment, with each of them.
Yes.
I seek connection with other moms. And I want to get everybody connected to their food and where it comes from. I think that's so important.
Love it. I love that. And I love my guests off the cuff, like you're just reaching into your heart on that answer.
Yeah. You didn't warn me on that one. I was like, oh boy. Okay.
No, it's great. And for those who are watching in the Secret Sauce group, please comment as you come across this interview. Please comment. Let us know what your favorite tricks are for getting your kids involved and helping them enjoy, the creation process of creating healthy meals and healthy, options. So let's continue the conversation there in the Secret Sauce group. So Katie, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's such a pleasure to have you. And thanks everybody for tuning in. And we will see you on the next episode of the Heal Your Hunger show.
If you enjoyed this podcast and want to get free support, insider health info, exclusive invites to events, and more, visit healyourhunger.com.